This is Solve It for Kids.
Hello, my amazing and curious friends. My name is Jennifer, the Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, and this is Solve It for Kids, the podcast that gives kids and families a peek inside the real world of scientists, engineers, and experts as they solve problems in their jobs using creativity, cooperation, and critical thinking. And now please welcome to the show my podcast partner, Galactic Space Geek, Jeff Gagne.
Hello, Jennifer, and hello, listeners. Some topics in space and science hit every single body. And this is going to be one of those topics for the next little while.
I completely agree. What problem are we solving today?
How can you prepare for the total solar eclipse?
How can you prepare for the total solar eclipse? Ooh, these are some questions I have. I can't wait to hear the answers. Who's our guest today, Jeff?
Our guest today has the answers. Today we're talking to Dan Schneiderman. He is, listen up, it's a long title, but super cool job, the Eclipse Partnership Coordinator at the Rochester Museum and Science Center's Planetarium.
Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
We are so excited to talk about the solar eclipse. I know we just had kind of a partial eclipse not that long ago, but the big total solar eclipse comes next year in April. Yay! Okay.
It is getting here faster and faster every day.
Right? It's on its way. All right. So I always like to ask, though. So you're in charge of the solar eclipse. As a kid, did you always look at space and did you see any eclipses?
I haven't seen any total solar eclipses in my life. The first partial eclipse I saw, I didn't see till 2017. But
wow.
As a kid, I have always been a space fan. I grew up at the Strasbourg Planetarium where my office now is.
Oh, that's cool.
I went stargazing as a kid a lot. I very, very clearly remember as a kid going out to my grandparents who were in a bit more of a rural area and just like being able to spot like 4 planets in one night along with the International Space Station. And like that stands out in my mind as one of my favorite memories.
That's a pretty good space night. Yeah, I think.
Absolutely, that's a good space night. So as you were growing up and you were always a space fan, you remember that one night. Was there something, because we're going to link you right back to where you work now, do you have a special memory from being a child at the museum that you now work at?
I don't think I have any specific memory because I grew up going here a lot.
That's
So I went to
so
camp
much.
here.
Yeah.
My family was here, at least once or twice a month. I went on dates with my now wife at the planetarium.
Oh, that's nice. I would do
Which-
that. Yeah.
On a weird thing, we haven't figured this out, but we might have gone to camp here at the exact same time,
Oh, that's funny.
which is just weird. Like,
Yes,
Almost
the stars are
cosmic.
aligning.
There you go. Yeah. So how did you get from as a kid, going to the space museum to working at the space museum? Did you volunteer as a kid or anything like that?
I didn't volunteer as a kid. I originally started getting into science and STEM-based events and STEAM-based events at the end of high school. As I got into first robotics, I started helping out with our off-season competitions, doing outreach.
Yeah.
Got into more in college, helping run events. And then after college, I helped co-start the Maker Faire here in Rochester. And then that kind of led down this whole rabbit hole of running STEAM-based events all across Rochester, all across New York State.
Wow.
Even as far as like starting a STEM area at the state fair,
I
bringing
love that.
hands-on science activities to other festivals, and then just ended up volunteering with the museum more and more.
That's
Very cool.
fantastic. Yeah.
Okay, before we jump directly into the eclipse, what you were just talking about, we started with the fact that you're a super space fan. You're now working all the eclipse all the time until that happens. But working backwards, you did lots of STEM. You were doing first robotics. You helped found the Maker Faire. Those are all different areas in the STEM and STEAM worlds. Can you talk a little bit about how sort of all of us in the STEM and STEAM worlds love the overlap between all of our areas? You don't have to find another Eclipse or Space Geek. If you're a robotics person, you don't have to find another robotics geek. All of the areas of STEM just kind of intermingle with each other.
It's one of those funny things of you don't realize how much everything overlaps. It's like I think about
Yes.
music and math and how interconnected
Right.
they are.
Yes, exactly.
I love playing with lenses and
Mm-hmm.
humor. I mix a lot of science and humor personally.
Okay.
You should, right? It makes it
As
more
you should,
fun.
yeah. I've done this thing called a big face box where you take a Fresnel lens and as you put it up to your face just becomes huge looking, and getting to
I love
talk
that.
about optics at like a state fair with those, all you do is people laughing, you get people
That's
learning.
fantastic.
Whenever you mix the two, it's so much fun.
Oh,
That's terrific.
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So now the big question, because I want to get to this so we can talk about the solar eclipse, is how do we prepare for it? But maybe we should answer the question because maybe everybody doesn't know, what is a total eclipse first?
So a total solar eclipse is when the moon passes directly in front of the sun and completely obscures the sun's disk.
Wow. And how long does this last? And does this happen during the day so we can see it?
It happens during the day. It only lasts a few minutes. The longest any total solar eclipse can ever be is about 7.5 minutes long.
Wow.
This is just due to the distance between the sun, the moon, and the earth, and how we all relate to each other and our positions against each other. We're even lucky enough to get total solar eclipses because the math just works out that while the sun is 400 times larger, the moon is 400 times closer to us. So from our perspective on Earth, they are about the exact same size.
Wow. Which they in real life clearly are not.
Very much so.
So that gives us a beginning lesson on perspective.
Right.
Just because things appear to be the same size doesn't mean they are. But when you say the moon is going to cover the entire disk of the sun, how come we can still see light when that happens?
That is the sun's outer atmosphere, or the corona.
Yeah.
So you still have all this light coming out around the edges. And actually, one of my favorite things to look for right as we're entering a total solar eclipse and right at the very end is because the moon is not a perfectly smooth sphere. There's craters, there's ridges. You can see a little bit of light escaping through those in the last couple of seconds before you enter totality.
Wow.
When the sun's disk is completely blocked, and it's called Bailey's beads. It's this little bit of light dancing along the edges.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
That is something cool to look for.
So can you tell us kind of, we know that there are specific rules for how you look at an eclipse. Can you kind of go through those steps for our listeners?
Yes. So if you are in the path of totality, which I know not everyone is, but everyone will still get a great view of the eclipse no matter what.
Yeah.
So you should still go outside on April 8th, 2024. And you are going to need a pair of eclipse glasses if you want to look directly at the sun.
Okay.
These are not sunglasses, but something so much more powerful. These block out just about every bit of light outside except the sun. So if you were to put these on, you're basically almost putting on a blindfold, but the only thing you can see is the sun.
You know, I used those for the the Harshell eclipse a few months ago in October. And I think that was the first time I ever had a real pair of glasses because I've done the whole pinhole thing, which I'm sure we're going to talk about before. And I put them on and I did not realize that they were like blackout. And I was like, I see nothing. And my son who's used them was like, Yes, Mom, you have to look at the sun. That's the whole point of them. You can only see the sun. And I was like, but it was cloudy, so as the clouds
Yeah.
moved, then all of a sudden I could see it. And it was so cool. So I'm telling everybody, go get these cool glasses. It's really a
In fact,
unique
you
thing.
should use these not only on the day of the eclipse, but year round on a sunny day. It is a lot of fun to look at the
Oh
sun.
my gosh, I never thought of
And
that.
one of my favorite things to do is go out around sunset when you can see both the sun and the moon. So you have to get the
Right.
right days when the moon is fully out. And you can go back and forth between looking through the glasses at the sun and looking over at the moon when you take the glasses off and see how close in size they are.
Wow, I'll have to try
So you can do
that.
that year round.
That sounds fun. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that next time.
That is very cool. And I have noticed that when you put the solar glasses on inside, if you happen to have a bright enough light bulb inside your house, you will be able to see just the filament glowing just a little bit in the orange sort of color. But yeah, the glasses are super fun. And
cool.
a lot of folks do forget, Dan, I truly appreciate that you just said the other 364 days a year, they still work to look at the sun because any other time it's not safe. So continuing the preparation,
Yes.
the solar glasses, what else can we do? So let's say we're going to plan on getting or having the solar glasses. What else can we do to be prepared for looking at and enjoying that day in April?
So you should think about your location and where the sun should be. So if you were to find about midway through south-southwest and look about 45 degrees up on the horizon, so about halfway up the sky, you should be able to see where the sun will be. And I want you to think about this ahead of time so that you make sure that there's no trees in the way, that there's no buildings in the way.
Yes.
And think about what type of experience you want. There's tons of festivals out there, or you could go out and be in a park. I want you to start thinking about what you want to look for, because not only is looking up at the eclipse a fun thing to do, but look around what's going on around you, because animals will act differently, plants will act differently, and even you'll see some of your family and friends just kind of light up. People just start laughing or crying or just being excited about it.
That was me. I was out in the backyard by myself going, where is everybody? This is cool science happening here, people. So you mentioned the path of totality, and I want to go back to that. Can you tell our listeners how they can figure out where that is and maybe if they can go there or how much they can see from where they are?
So there's a lot of really good interactive maps out there. I know NASA has one of my favorite maps because it shows the annular eclipse that just took place in 2023 and the 2024 total solar eclipse. The interactive map I use the most is timeanddate.com, where you can actually click on where you live and see the timing of the eclipse. You can see how much of it that you're going to see. And it has lots of fun historical facts as well.
Oh, that's really cool. So you guys are going to be in the path of totality. So that means you're going to see it all, right? The whole thing?
We're seeing the whole thing. We're seeing from all the partial phases, totality, and all the phases, partial phases at the end.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Okay. So Jen just mentioned that you guys in Rochester are right in that path of totality. Can you spend a couple of minutes talking to all of the other people on that map that are not in that path thinking, oh, well, if I'm not in that path, I'm not going to bother with this?
So I was actually in this position back in 2017 where I didn't get to travel to the path of totality, but I still got to see 70% of the sun covered back in 2017 during the last big total solar eclipse in the US.
That's cool.
You are still going to want to go outside. You're still going to want to put on the glasses because it is still a very unusual sight to see a good chunk of the sun just be covered. For some people, it's almost going to look like, imagine a giant bright cookie with a almost cartoonish bite taken out of it.
I love that.
I like it.
Yeah, that's exciting. So can you tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing at the Rochester Museum and Science Center? Because you mentioned a bunch of festivals. So give us an idea of what's going to be going on where you are.
So we'll be running a festival that covers a couple days, Rock the Eclipse. We're going to
Oh,
have
wow.
speakers. We're going to have music, performers. We're going to have some of the historic tales about the eclipse because every culture has some relationship to eclipses. There's a lot of history involved. We're going to have tons of hands-on demos. One of the things that we started a trend of for 2024 is how we commission giant pairs of working eclipse glasses. We were inspired by the Adler
Wow.
Planetarium back in 2017, and we said,
Yeah.
let's take it up a notch. So we have 5 pairs of 6-foot wide eclipse glasses. Actually, one of those pairs is 8-foot wide,
Oh
and
my
you can actually
gosh.
look at the sun through these things.
Holy cow, those are
That's
big.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So this has been a lot of fun. We've been traveling with them all summer and just having people look at the sun through these giant glasses.
Oh, that sounds, yeah. We might have to go up there and see through those, Jeff. What do you think?
Definitely.
That sounds fun.
I totally want a selfie, but I don't think my arm is long enough, so I'll have to have somebody else hold that camera.
Oh, we have people who can help out with that.
There you go. There you go.
Excellent.
We've also been playing with the scale of the sun, the moon, and the earth. So, like, as I mentioned, the relationship between all of them. So we have several 10-foot inflatable suns, and we figured out how big
Cool.
the earth and moon would be against them. So the earth is only about an inch in diameter, and the moon is a quarter of an inch.
Whoa.
That's a
And
mind-blowing thing for
yeah,
families to
and
see.
to see it too is really cool, you know, in actual kind of specs and everything. Wow.
And then we did the math and we realized, oh, wait, we could do this in scale for distance as well on our grounds. So we have one straight path across our grounds, which is 1,074 feet,
Wow.
which is
Nice.
what it would be at that scale.
Oh, this sounds really fun. We're going to have to
When-
visit up there. Yeah.
There are some fun things that you can do with math when you apply it to the right thing.
Absolutely. Math is fun. Math is really
Very
fun.
true.
Yes.
Jennifer had already mentioned it earlier. Beyond the glasses, can you get into that pinhole camera? And maybe not necessarily how to make a whole one, but the effect, why that works, and
Yeah.
why it works when light goes through, say, the leaves on trees on an eclipse day.
Yes. So one of the classic ways outside of eclipse glasses to view a eclipse, and this works for all of the phases of eclipse, is by creating a pinhole projector.
Okay.
So the classic pinhole projector is just, a cardboard box with a small hole in it that you don't look through the box up at the sun, you look at the projection. I want you to think about this works in the same way that a lot of cameras used to work. Or if you're to look at the ground in between the leaves on a nice sunny day, when the leaves are out, I will say it is winter up here in Rochester. Not as many trees, as many leaves are out right now. But it's that same light kind of escaping through and just kind of creating this projection. And you can recreate this effect with just about any item imaginable for the eclipse. So in addition to like a cardboard box or your hands, my favorite tool to use is like a colander or a spaghetti strainer.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
We have dozens of them ready to use for the eclipse. Or I've had one of my other favorite objects is to use Ritz crackers or saltines. Because they have small holes in
They
them,
do.
you can have that same projection effect and then eat it afterwards.
Well, you have a snack. There you go.
Yeah. View the eclipse and have your snack. It's a completely green way to view the eclipse.
I love that. All right. So for our curious listeners, can you explain why eclipses happen and why they only happen like every so many years?
Yeah. So eclipses happen more often than you would think. There's an eclipse somewhere on Earth about every 18 to 24 months.
Oh, I didn't know that. Cool.
But for any given location to experience an eclipse twice, the average is around 375 to 400 years.
Oh.
So I know here in Rochester, we're lucky where our average is closer to about 100 to 120, but some places might not get to experience an eclipse for, hundreds and hundreds of years.
So this is a not to be missed event, right? Because you're not going to live until the next one.
The next one in the continental US won't be till 2044, and then one that goes from coast to coast in 2045.
Oh, well, that's a little closer, but you probably have to chase them, right? Because don't they move? It's not always the same path?
Yes. So the reason why we have eclipses and why they're a bit more rare is because the axis of the moon around the Earth is on a 5-degree tilt.
Okay.
So I want you to imagine like a piece of paper and the moon going below it and then above it on that 5-degree tilt. And every time that it passes that piece of paper, that is when a eclipse can happen. And depending on the location of the sun and the moon, you could
Right.
have a lunar eclipse when the Earth passes in front of the sun, or a solar eclipse when the moon passes in front of the sun compared to us.
I see.
I appreciate that explanation. That was terrific. You had already mentioned how all cultures kind of have a relationship to eclipses as time has passed and we've arrived where we are in 2024 now. Do you have a favorite story of past peoples or a civilization? Something, a history lesson about a solar eclipse or how a certain peoples looked at solar eclipses?
Yeah. So my favorite one is local to me, which is the Haudenosaunee Confederacy in New York State.
Ah,
So
Okay.
according to oral tradition, the Confederacy, where all of the tribes across the region came together and united, is said to have happened under a total solar eclipse.
oh wow.
So it's
That's
seen as
Okay.
a positive shared event. In some cultures, it's also seen as something to avoid and not go out and look at. I've
Right.
heard different mythology about different animals. I've heard dragons eating the moon. I've heard
ah,
of
okay.
other creatures eating the moon and then, or eating the sun and then spitting it back out. There's, you can find it across pop culture as well. I think of a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, or some people might remember the TV show Avatar: The Last Airbender, where it was a whole plot point
Yes.
in the show. It's everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a big also kind of thing that brings everybody together in, across the country because there's so many different places that are observing it. There's libraries because I know there's libraries where I live that are going to be they did stuff for the annular eclipse and they were already planning for the total eclipse. Just like you, even though it's a couple months away, everybody's looking at that. But can you talk to us a little bit about the weather? What do you do if you find out that your day is not going to be great? Because that's what happened to me in the total eclipse in 2017. I was all ready, and I live in Florida, in comes this big old rain cloud. I mean, you didn't even see the sky get darker because it was already dark. It was very depressing. So, what do you do if you see you're going to have cloudy skies?
So this is funny enough, probably one of my most asked questions being in upstate New York
Right.
in April. We're known for snow around that time of year. It
Oh
could be
my
a little bit
gosh.
earlier, it could be a little bit later. We'll see. We have a 51% chance of sun in the greater Rochester region. But if it is a cloudy day, no matter what, the eclipse is still going to be taking place because we have no control over the placement of the sun,
Yeah,
the moon, the earth,
right.
or the weather. So all of this is completely out of our control, but it will still get dark out if you're in the path of totality. In fact, it might
Oh.
even seem a little bit darker out, almost as if you were outside at sunrise and it's cloudy out or it's raining. It might feel a little bit
Oh,
darker than it would later in the
okay.
day when the sun
Okay.
would be up and it's raining.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. You could always pop in your car, drive somewhere, or flip on the TV because they cover this on some of the channels too, don't they?
You can find it on TV, on YouTube.
On
I
YouTube.
know NASA, the Weather Channel. I remember back
Right.
in 2017, most of the major news stations had live coverage. We tuned into, what was it, 2 or 3 different live streams during the annular eclipse in 2023.
Yeah. That's awesome.
There's
That's
and
awesome.
they bring out the big names. What I will say about weather is, even if it is cloudy out, there's still a slight chance that the clouds will part at the last second. And there's a reason why I say this is
It's
back in
true.
2017 at Homestead National Monument, they had 20,000 people out there. Bill Nye the Science Guy was out there,
Oh
which
my
might
gosh.
explain 20,000 people. And if you're to look at footage from there that day, thunderstorms, heavy rain, and just like the worst of the worst weather. But at the last possible second, the clouds parted just enough
Oh my
for you to see the
gosh.
eclipse. There's
Oh
some
my
great
gosh.
footage of this
Very
online,
cool.
and you could just hear people just roar with excitement as they're able to see it.
That's fantastic.
That's wonderful. So, as we're recording, we have some time for you to prepare. What is one thing that you are particularly very excited about? Whether it's your moment of seeing or something that you're preparing for the greater Rochester region to experience with you.
I think my favorite thing that I'm looking forward to, well, two things come to mind is A, getting to see everyone so excited and hearing everyone's Eclipse stories
Yes.
afterwards. I've been working on this. I joined our local Eclipse committee back in 2019.
Oh, wow.
So it's been a good couple of years leading up to this moment.
Sure has.
Awesome. Wow.
And then my favorite thing that I'm looking forward to is honestly getting to view totality with my wife and daughter. My daughter's going
Yeah.
to be just over 2 years old and getting to see it with her and be excited.
Oh, that is exciting.
Wonderful.
It's a moment I just can't wait for.
Oh, yeah. So everybody needs to prepare for this. Exactly. All right. So along those lines, we always ask our guests to give our listeners a challenge. So what is your challenge for our listeners, Dan?
For all of your listeners, I want you to think about what you could use around your house to make a pinhole viewer for the eclipse.
Ooh. Do you have any suggestions, or do you want them to just look around and see what they have?
Look around, think about what you might be able to use that might be a bit unusual, what you might be able to poke holes in with your parents' permission. I will say that up front. I have done enough hands-on activities where I have forgotten to mention that. Think about what you could do with cardboard. Think about what type of foods might work and what you already have that could possibly be a great pinhole viewer.
Yeah, I love that. Also, I will add, check with your local library because a lot of the libraries will give away free eclipse glasses, which is really cool. That's where I got my eclipse glasses.
That's where I got mine back in 2017. We have heavily been partnering with our local libraries.
Yeah.
And as someone who grew up attending the library a lot, yeah.
Me too. Me too. Yes.
There's tons of Eclipse books out there as well.
Oh, absolutely. So check those out. But oh my gosh, this has been so
terrific.
Awesome. We have learned so much about the upcoming solar eclipse, and we hope all of you go out and plan to watch it safely. Watch it safely, right? Thank you so much for being on Solve It for Kids, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
And I want to say a quick thank you for sharing. I know it's your job, but sharing all of your enthusiasm about it with as many people as you will in the greater Rochester region. They are all the better for it.
It is such an easy thing to get excited and get everyone excited about. Everyone under the sun is going to experience this.
Awesome.
Unintended.
Love that. Thanks, Dan.
Yes, this is absolutely the conversation we needed to have so we can all be prepared to enjoy the eclipse happening, the total solar eclipse happening, and enjoy it safely. And love, love, love the challenge. No, you don't need to spend money. Don't need to buy a solar telescope. Don't even need solar sunglasses to be able to view it. Finding something around the house. And I'd be willing to bet a lot of our listeners are going to find more than one thing around the house to use as pinhole cameras. What about you, Jennifer?
Yes, I think there's lots of ways to see this. I mean, personally, I have the little solar sunglasses, which I will remind all of our listeners, sometimes you can get them for free at your public library.
Yes.
So go there and check it out. But if you can't, making a pinhole projector is so cool because, hello, science, right? It's all science. So however you choose to safely watch the solar eclipse, let us know. We would love to hear from you. Tag us on our social media. We are at KidSolve at Facebook, X, and Instagram. And don't forget to check out our website, solveitforkids.com, where we'll have directions for how to make a pinhole projector and also book recommendations for kids so they can learn more about the sun.
Absolutely doing this safely. Super important. Never, never, never look at the sun without proper equipment.
Yes.
And pay attention to all of the information that's going to be coming out over the next until it happens, because there is so much more to learn than just the experience. Until the 2024 total solar eclipse happens, you will hear Jen and Jeff on Solve It for Kids!